an absolutely, truly core African music, there's equal respect for what the men in the society do and what the women in society do. And one would have to cite Africa in any regard because that's where the first human beings came from, literally. The first beings, which then later were defined as humans, there had to be that equality. Otherwise, the race wouldn't have survived. So in totally equal societies where a female presence is as important as a male presence, there are differentiated roles. Vocals, the need for a female vocalist is essential for what we call jazz today. The sense of an emotive expression, an expressive, possibly improvisatory expression, which is as female as it is male. It is not more female than male, but it is exactly as much as. And so the makings of jazz have been as much female as male. And if you go back to the origins of early jazz, its very basic origins being the blues, the religious music and blues, that music is totally equal. There's no such thing as preferred singer in blues. At one time in the 1920s, it was a female that was a preferred blues singer. People like African Americans such as Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey and some of those, they were the most outstanding voices. So those women's voices were then necessarily teamed up with male instrumentalists such as Louis Armstrong and James P. Johnson and other instrumentalists. So it was the women's sort of expressive qualities with some of the men's technical abilities, because in Africa it often was the men who were the drummers. Not always, but in many traditional African societies, the men were the drummers, the noisemakers, and women were often the vocalists. Now that's a very, very cheap generalization, but if you can follow that back, it sort of works in much of African traditional history. So if you could follow that through to the current day, that remains. But that doesn't have to be the only divide, but that's definitely one inspiring way in which you can try to reclaim some of the values of a woman's voice in contemporary popular music. Because I didn't finish the one sentence, but jazz is responsible then for rock and roll. Rock and roll would never have happened without the blues. It just wouldn't have happened. So rock and roll stems from African American. Pop music stems from rock and roll. Hip hop is not even an extension, it's an absolutely black voice all over again. And you can go to Michelle and Dichella from Washington, D.C. area, and other rappers, women rappers who are claiming their voice, other hip-hop duos and combinations which are dependent on women's voices. So I think it's up to us who are studying the corners and edges of music to highlight the women whose work has been incredibly important in this whole jazz world, and know that it came from a way long ago, deep-seated African root where the male and female roles were equally important.